Janaína, and I will present and moderate this live session. Before introducing you to Fernanda, our speaker, I would like to present this brand new e-learning platform, Talentum 360. Let's take some minutes to watch the video presentation. It is a pleasure to present this new executive business unit, Training and Talent Development Center, Talentum 360. Talentum 360 is a virtual training and specialization hub developed by Clear Words Translations, focused on the global translation and localization market, technology, artificial intelligence, advanced translation techniques, business, project management, and game localization are just a few examples of the topics dealt with in the courses. The purpose of this training center is to provide innovative on-the-job training, continuous education, and professional development for the company's human talents and external audiences. The main objective is to be closer to collaborators and professionals, providing and sharing knowledge and new tools. We understand the translation and localization industry is changing and presenting new goals, and we want to be part of this move. This new business unit is for all of us in order to reach our professional development, with the goal to offer the translation and localization community a one-stop place for career development. Today, we celebrate this lunch with you all today, and a great speaker that will be sharing her opinion about the importance of continuous education and how technology can be used in the process. So, let me introduce you to Fernanda Sarmento. She is expert in education in Oi Futura, an institute of innovation and creativity. She has been acting in projects that articulate the use of technology, creative methodologies, and new languages, so as pedagogical strategies of both students and teachers from high school. Since 2012, she's one of the people responsible for NAVI, Advanced Center Education, where she engages in developing pedagogical practices and the continued education for teachers. Fernanda will be talking about creativity and digital for training. Welcome, Fernanda, and thanks for being here with us today. Hi, Jean. Thanks for the invitation. Good afternoon, everyone from Brazil and worldwide. It is a pleasure to share experiences from NAVE program, especially on teachers training. I expect to this new platform success, a lot of success with this innovative perspective. I'm impressed with when you presented to me the project, especially with the approach in games. Thank you, Fernanda. Before we start, I would like to do a quick recall. We are being live broadcast on YouTube, where you can leave questions for Fernanda. When she finishes the presentation, we'll have some minutes for the Q&A session. Fernanda, mic's all yours. Thank you. Well, as Jana had already introduced, the subject I introduced today is continuing teacher education with an approach on creativity and digital culture. Oi Futuro is an institute for training in creativity, and we work in 4 areas: culture, education, social innovation, and sports fields. And today I will be talking about education, specifically the NAVE program. It's an advanced education center, an initiative from the institute in partnership with the Secretariat of Education in Rio de Janeiro. And we work in between public policies. We count with technical partners. So NAVE is born with this commitment of being a place for experimentation, applying new technologies in order to inspire and impact public policies. And how does that take place? Let me show you a little. It is present in 2 schools, one of them in Pernambuco, where we started in 2006, and the other is set in Rio de Janeiro. Just to give you an overview of what I'm talking about. And NAVE is born with a guiding question, which is present still nowadays. How can a school speak the language of its time, being ready to form citizens and professionals? I mean, any present, but we are conceiving our near present. And how does that take place? It takes place between these 3 pillars. It is present in 2 public schools whose philosophic and pedagogical bases are integral education. And when we mention that, we are comprising both a physical and emotional, cultural dimensions, intellectual as well. So we understand human beings in its totality. Hence, professional training. Those 2 schools have teaching models that are articulated with professional training in the areas of programming for games. So we work a lot based in critical and creative thoughts. So we have methodologies such as problem solving in project-based learning, in order to develop projects that aim at some social transformation. So aside from technical courses, which are articulated with the present, we have a strong core of communication, which is Navi Media Lab. And we'll be talking about it a little further on what we've been developing so far, which also brings a huge impact on students, so as in teachers. The second pillar is the registering and sharing pedagogical practices. Every experience that has been lived in this program, developed either by teachers and students, is processed here. So we are very careful in order to follow up, to be together with the pedagogical coordination of both courses and technical courses in order to try to approach that experience in our dissemination center. Aside from our commitment with the management, knowledge management, we have another process that is called self-teaching. Nowadays, the community itself understands its challenges, recognizing the intelligence of its peers in order to propose courses. So any training comes from a mathematical teacher to a programming teacher. They understand that this is going to be something interesting for everyone. So we are able to provide some training for the school, which is further than our third pillar, which is identifying any improvement need in continued education, hence bringing external experts in order to support that development. So everything that happens in these training centers is registered, it is systematized and transformed into projects that impact the network as a whole. And how does that take place? We are able to develop a ebook with practices developed by teachers and students. We launch a web series based in practices with 2 teachers. We are able to develop experience in a course for the public schools. So teachers responsible for technical courses were able to develop a robotics course, which is being developed for 10 years in the network. And I was astonished on seeing how present it is in different technology events. And we've been trying to be there in order to learn and share. So this is the program. It has these 3 pillars. And here I would like to show a little on how it is produced. So here we have multimedia programming courses. We have an interdisciplinary core team with students and teachers developing interface, the project, and the management. We have a whole simulation of a game company developing games. It takes place during school class, what we call embedded project, where programming students will be developing projects. So once a game project appears, you can see that they had a goal of portraying the perception of a schizophrenic person. That's an artistic game. It provides an artistic perspective. We also have a huge work on human formation, on respect and empathy. That's something very strong in our program, and that ends up being reflected in games. We see these are low complexity games. We can develop them within 8 months, 1 year. And aside from games, we have methodologies. They aim at developing curricular competent skills, also being integrated with a playful process, either audiovisual projects or games. In this case, this experience was a quest for clues inside the school space about the very first board game, which is chess, and students must uh, look for pieces inside the school in order to play a match. So they had to look for it inside the physical space, and the clues were given in English. Hence, they needed English to understand the rules of the game in order to finish the match. So you see, gaming is present from the very conception of a project, so as with embedded into the process game related, but it also has something to do with the gamification. That is transforming physical spaces into gaming spaces. Now we are talking about translation. Professor Sonia has a process inside the technical course where students must do a pitch. It is not only about gaming. They need to do a short film on either an animation or a video about a project, a theater project, but they need to present that project. So generally they used to present them in Portuguese, but due to a partnership, it can also take place in English. That's something very common in Brazil. We always say, in English, please. That's a practice that articulates the programming course together with the technical multimedia program with the regular disciplines such as English. And this is this subject, it was all something a lot closer before the pandemic. Now, at this very moment, a little more than 1 year after that the pandemic started, we know the risks, and in a way, the pandemic posed a challenge before us. Yet, old challenges, but inside a new context. What do I mean by that? In Nave, we have a cell, a lab, a very strong communication lab from its very opening, which is Nav Media Lab. It is responsible for the training of students and teachers and communication aspects, comprising digital culture, media, and projects. Nowadays, any teacher every teacher needs to know how media can support educational processes. And here we have media educators who are able to support a project that articulates skills with new medias. This project has existed for 15 years, and new technologies are always a starting point for investigation that generally introduce a new word. And we reached this moment where everything was in presence. Classrooms, Navi Media Lab space, the cameras, and nowadays we are not living this reality. So as you can see, everything is pretty physical. We have teachers interacting with students inside the space, shooting inside Navi Media Lab. Just to bring you some context, we have a recording studio, an audio studio, and a editing lab where we can produce educational pieces with media. So when I mention project, that's what I'm talking about. How teachers use this physical space, just like physical education classes. So last year we had this disruption where everyone had to go remotely teaching. And when I say that, it is not only digital, it is distant, also evolving, teachers having to elaborate their process, their roles in papers, but mostly our job has been remote. Nowadays we have schools using all free tools. And for us, it was a very sudden transformation because we had to exit presence, exchange the physical for the digital, understanding the issues that may rise by students, for example, internet access, and what could we do to solve them. But this very space in Navi Media Lab, which was exclusively presential, in a fortnight with the resources we had available and our partner team, we had to transform this space in a digital space in order to respond to provide a response for teachers. The pandemic has actually accelerated futures. Those steps that were we believed to be far ahead of us came closer. Hence, we started developing videos, doing tutorials on how make a stream, to do streaming, how to use the tools, uh, Google spreadsheet, text tools, how to use forms, how would they become uh, exams, podcasts, something which is very valid, the engagement by students towards teachers. And we all know that teachers are generally engaged when students are likewise engaged. And what references can one another bring into an interaction? And nowadays we have gaming tools, we have panel dashboard tools for co-creation, just like Miro, among others. The whole dynamics are important, actually paramount in this exchange process. Teachers and students are present in social networks, so how come we are not using them? There are more students and teachers with smartphones and than with computers. So we need to reinvent ourselves. Thus, Media Lab became this digital space which has demands from teachers from Navi, but it also supports teachers from other networks. We have this continued education in digital culture, in digital literacy for teachers, and this is something open, 100% open and free for teachers. So teachers can just get there, register, and do their own pathway. For creative education, we have something for class mediation learning in digital spaces. This experience is also very sounding in a platform that the government of Pernambuco has, and we were able to adapt small courses for this platform. So aside from the platform in Navi Media Lab Digital, we were able to bring that to a governmental network, impacting in public policies directly in a process which is the third one, are mentoring, customized projects for teachers. Teachers have both in Navi, but outside Navi, have projects and they are mentored by a media educational professional. So we had this huge turn, which was from something presential to something virtual, being able to support teachers from the schools we work with and the other teachers from the network. So from two single states, we were able to be present in Brazil as a whole. It has sounded positively, exactly due to the capacity that the digital has, being able to trespass physical limits, geographical limits. So today, we have more than 1,000 educators who were impacted by Navi Media Lab, more than 500 certificated teachers, both in the mentorships. We also have a digital culture, robotics digital course. So we have more than 500 certificated teachers, and we are present in more than 26 states. And that's an achievement that we see in a very positive way, despite the whole process we've been passing through, despite the scenario itself. We were able to meet other teachers, other realities, and I think that's something positive. The pandemic has made it evident what was being hidden, what was being avoided. Issues related to collectiveness, to learning strategies, exams, the teacher's role, and everything became clearer. Nowadays, we see that we are in a process that demands a lot of learning. This exchange from physical to virtual, we still feel, but yet we still feel that regarding education, we've been reproducing the physical school, the physical world into the digital, but the trainings and formations we propose nationwide of continued education in a nationwide scale, it has been leading us towards another level. It has been showing how much can we learn and teach inside this environment despite all the limitation, but we are also able at the same time to reinvent ourselves, meeting new and old education theorists and tools. This process is a continuous process that we are continuously studying. Regarding the geographical limitations, nowadays we are able to reach Brazil in a nationwide scale. We have the opportunity to exchange with the United States, Argentina, and the role of translation that you're doing is something special. So we are able to communicate, to take knowledge overseas. And what's most important, we should not leave behind being human beings. I like to mention an experience I had with technical teachers. When you see their classes, it is pretty much as if you could see the teacher. We miss physical proximity, we miss going to school, embracing others, but nowadays we're in a moment where we need to stand to hold on. But technology, despite the distance, allows us to be closer. So I think we need to investigate, we need to keep studying, we need to, first of all, first and foremost, consider human relationships in these environments because digital technology is here to stay. Here, I would like to bring an experience from Navi. You can connect by the icon. It gathers 40 practices developed by teachers. There are several of them, both in mathematics, physics, so as in game programming. So we have experiences already translated to English, Navi 1 and Navi 2. In total, we have 80 systematized experiences. So this is my contact in order we can move on with our conversation. Those who would like to learn more about Navi, we are open to partnerships. We want to meet institutions, so that would be a pleasure talking to you. This is the end of my presentation. I must say thank you all.
Desculpa, gente.
Sorry, folks.
Obrigada, Fernanda, pela apresentação.
Thank you, Fernanda, for your presentation.
Muito valioso. Eu tenho umas perguntas.
Thanks for sharing your perspective. I have a few questions to share with you. Michael is asking, what is your opinion about translation and localization of video game content? Well, it is something that is key because translation, literal translation doesn't contextualize references. When we have a video game, a digital game or a board game, for example, the experience I have here with board games. Very often I take a board game and when I get to see the rules, I can't understand them. I cannot understand them because they were not translated to Portuguese, to the context of my language. And digital games, that's something that happens with less often. But even the Portuguese from Portugal and the Brazilian Portuguese have huge differences. Some words can sound very quaint, and I think there's a huge demand of games and a huge market for contextualized translation, having in mind cultural aspects that respects that. We can't forget that whenever we do a game in Navi, we need to be very careful because sometimes it goes to Google Play, sometimes it goes to Etio, and we need to be very careful with the images we'll be applying because they might sound offensive in some countries. So we have text, we need translation, but we also need a contextual translation, and the semiotics, the imagery, is something that is paramount. I think that's an inspiring project because translation, well, just by mentioning the games universe, it's a whole lot of something. Imagine now literature. I believe it's a huge challenge. Next question from Luana. She says, in your opinion, distant learning is something that is here to stay, and how do you see the scenario for the next few years? Remote, distant learning, technology-based learning, I think it is here to stay, given the experience we have, also based in Navi program. I think it is here to stay because it had been used as something to add up. But nowadays we understand that there are moments with the collective, and now you have individual moments. So we'll have now a shift in this process. I believe that this career is something that is quite demanding, and I believe it is here to stay. It has its value, and it has its moment. It is broadly discussed the hybrid model, which is not the model we are right now. having a student in the very core of this knowledge process of knowledge search process. And I believe technology, the the remote mediated by technology, is something important. But what will be of the future? You mentioned, you said yourself, we have virtual reality, we have augmented reality, and in Brazil, I believe it must be conceived as a public policy, providing access, not only internet, but also access to the equipment necessary. But that's the moment when we start to look for it, having in mind public policies. We see a huge potential, mixed reality, which is something that mixes real life and virtual. How much we have to learn. We have uh, interesting experiences. There is this board game that I play, and I need to put on the AR glasses. I go through scenarios, and then I need to return to the analogic to find out the mystery. So I believe education will be something like that. We'll be shifting between physical and virtual. In the near future, it will be something in between shifts. And Fernanda, inside this new reality you see, what would be the skill, the competences and skills needed to deal with this rapid changes? Well, I think we need a lot of them. Here in Brazil, we are implementing a national basis for high school, and there digital culture is one of the competences. So what we need to have in this sense is something very well designed. The the code reading, there is this critical sense in programming, how a computer works, how a cell phone works. This is something very important. This is key for us in order to have a more critical view of the world. Digital literacy, how can we handle either a computer or a smartphone, softwares. It demands another type of competence, important, which is key both for those in virtual environments that demand collaboration and an improvement, not to say an enhancement in communication. And of course, I believe critical sense, creative sense as well, is something very important in this process in order for us to reinvent ourselves. Thank you, Fernanda. Next question comes from Carol Fontinelli, and she asks, which tools or apps do you suggest that are free and not heavy regarding memory they occupy in a smartphone, for example? Well, it depends on your goal. I don't know what your goals are. It depends a lot on that, from that. But straightforwardly, if you want to play with games, I believe Carpuch. We've been using that in Nav for years, and it is a soft app. You can use that in your mobile phone, in your computer, and you can gamify your class like a quiz, and you can also apply existing tools like Google Forms. There, you can do an exam, a gamified exercise by Google Form itself. So studying, uh, I think this is a very interesting app for games. We also have, I don't know if you know Miro. Miro is something very interesting for us to do to make projects, to work with them. So we have post-its. We can work in a collaborative way. We can design a project altogether. So these are those that came to my mind regarding creativity, but without knowing your goals exactly. Another question from Pilar. In the context you mentioned during your presentation, what are the characteristics that educators nowadays must have? Well, I think the teacher, well, I just said that, but I will repeat. Whenever a teacher notices the students are engaged, they think, what can I do? What can I do to make it work? So I believe teachers, educators nowadays are perennial investigators in their practices. They are researchers. They are scholars. So I think the main skill is not conforming, not being shut down for news. I have to practice every day. For example, having TikTok as a tool. No, I don't want to use TikTok. Have you ever used that? Oh, yes, I did. I don't like games. So I think we must keep our hearts open. Looking, we have having eyes in our students, in our peers, in order not to be stuck inside a box. But I believe that serves not only as an advice for teachers, but for all professionals. By and large, teachers are engaged by their students. And I see it because I witness how inspiring the attitude towards students. Uh, and I think that's a very interesting characteristic. That's my answer to Pilar. Very inspiring answer, by the way. We have no further questions. Fernanda, would you like to say something else before we wrap this up? Well, I am glad for the invitation, and I would like also to invite Talentum 360 to be with us at Navi to go and learn more about Navi. We have this proposal on working remotely, so we'd like to learn more from you too, to get closer. And I would like to thank for the chit chat, of the opportunity to share the experience we have at Navi. Thank you, Fernanda. Folks, again, I would like to thank your presence here in our third launching webinar, and I would like to repeat a few information in our website, www.talentum360.com. You can find lots of free courses like project management, desktop publishing, and specific training. So go visit and register. The next the next courses will be all free. I would like also to recall that next Tuesday, 13, we'll have our last webinar with Santiago Kovarbloff. I believe that's how we mention his name, about creativity and development in social mobility. The webinar will be broadcast in this very same channel on YouTube, where you can register and activate your icon to activate notifications. And before wrapping up, visit our social networks. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And once more, thank you for your presence, and we see you next time.